Have you ever noticed that the people you've known the longest aren't always the people who are actually good for you? Not enemies. Not anyone who did anything dramatic enough to justify walking away. Just people you've stayed close to out of habit, long after you both stopped growing in the same direction. The kind of friendship where nothing's technically wrong, but something's quietly off, and you've gotten so used to ignoring it that you barely notice anymore. I think about this more than I probably should. For a long time, I told myself that loyalty meant staying, no matter what. If I'd known someone for years, if we'd already been through things together, leaving felt like betrayal, even when staying was clearly costing me something. Here's what I've slowly realized. Loyalty was never supposed to mean staying with people who pull you backward. That's not loyalty. That's just fear wearing a nicer name, fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear that if you leave this group, there might not be another one waiting for you, so at least this one is familiar, even if it isn't good for you anymore. Most people never actually sit down and think through why they're still close to certain friends. They just are because it's been that way for years, because there's history, because ending it would require an actual conversation nobody wants to have. So instead, you shrink parts of yourself around them. You stop bringing up the things you actually care about because you already know how the group would react. You laugh along sometimes, even when something doesn't sit right with you, because saying something would make things awkward, and awkward somehow feels worse than staying quiet. Picture the actual scene. You're in the group chat or sitting in someone's car or at the same spot you always end up at on weekends. Someone brings up a plan or makes a joke or talks about something they did that you genuinely don't respect. And you just go along with it, the same way you always do, because pointing it out would make you the difficult one, the one who suddenly has a problem, when really you've had the problem quietly for a while now. There are some quiet signs this has already happened to you, even if nobody said it out loud. You leave hangouts feeling a little more drained than you did walking in. You've started editing yourself down to a smaller, safer version of who you actually are before you even show up, without really deciding to. You keep a whole side of your life private from the people who are supposedly your closest friends, not because it's shameful, but because you already know exactly how it would land, and you'd rather not find out for sure. Part of why this is so hard to walk away from isn't really about the people at all. It's about what your brain does with time you've already invested. You've known them for years, so some part of you treats that history like proof you're supposed to stay, the same way people keep watching a bad movie just because they already sat through the first hour. The years already spent start to feel like a debt you owe the friendship instead of what they actually are, which is just time that already happened. I used to think the fix was trying to change the group from the inside. Bring up something better, suggest doing something different, hope that if I said the right thing enough times, everyone would eventually shift with me. That almost never works, and honestly, it's not even fair to expect it to. People don't owe you a transformation just because you had one. Some of them are exactly where they want to be, and that's allowed, even if it's not where you want to be anymore. Part of what kept me from even questioning it for so long was just having somewhere to go. Having plans on a Friday, having a group chat that's active, having people to sit with feels like enough on its own, so you stop asking whether it's actually the right somewhere. And it gets harder to notice once you're comparing your life to everyone else's highlight reel too. You'll see other people's friend groups looking close and fun online, and instead of asking whether your own group actually fits you, you just feel a quiet pressure to hold on to the one you've got, since at least it looks like enough from the outside, even when it doesn't feel like enough from the inside. What actually shifted things for me wasn't trying to fix the group I already had. It was realizing I'd never really gone looking for people who matched both parts of what I needed. The lifestyle and the actual values underneath it. Most people only search for one or the other. They'll find friends who share their interests, their hobbies, their sense of humor, and just assume the rest will sort itself out eventually. Or they'll find people who technically share their values on paper but have nothing in common day to day, so that friendship never really goes anywhere either. The friendships that actually change your life are the ones where both line up at the same time, and that kind of overlap doesn't usually just fall into your lap. You have to actually be looking for it, on purpose, instead of hoping the group you already have eventually catches up to you. That means showing up to things you'd normally skip, sitting with people slightly outside your usual circle instead of only ever talking to the same 5 names, paying attention to who you feel like a better version of yourself around, instead of who you've just always been around. Most people never do this, not because they can't, but because it's easier to keep hanging out with people who already know your inside jokes than to sit through the mildly awkward stage of actually getting to know someone new. It's also worth being honest that not every disagreement means you've outgrown someone. People argue, people annoy each other, people have off nights, and none of that automatically means the friendship has stopped fitting. The actual signal isn't one bad night or one dumb argument. It's a pattern over months where you keep noticing the same gap between where they're headed and where you're trying to go, and it never really closes no matter how much time passes. That's a very different thing from just having a rough week with someone you're otherwise still aligned with. You might be thinking, what if this is genuinely the only group I have? What if there isn't some better option quietly waiting somewhere? That's a fair thing to worry about, and it doesn't get resolved by staying home and hoping the right people show up on their own. It gets resolved slowly by showing up in a few more rooms than you usually would without needing an immediate result. You're not replacing anyone overnight. You're just widening the pool of people your life is actually exposed to, so it stops being a choice between the group you have and total isolation, which was never really the only two options to begin with. None of this means cutting people off dramatically or announcing that you're somehow better than your friend group now. That's not what this is. You can still care about people and also notice you've outgrown the direction they're going in. You can still answer their texts and still not build your entire future around a group that stopped matching who you're trying to become. Growing apart from people doesn't require a villain. Sometimes two people just stop walking the same way, and pretending otherwise for another 5 years doesn't actually honor the friendship. It just delays the obvious. If you're being honest with yourself right now, you probably already know which friendships in your life are lifestyle only, which ones are values only, and which ones don't really have either anymore, just history. That's not a reason to blow anything up today. It's just information. And once you actually have that information, you stop waiting for the group you already have to magically become the group you actually need. You start building the other one on purpose, alongside it, instead of pretending loyalty means staying in one place forever no matter what it costs you. This isn't something that happens in one conversation or one dramatic weekend. It's slow and a little uneven, and there will be stretches where it feels like nothing's changed at all. That's normal. You're not looking for a single moment where everything resolves. You're just looking for your life to gradually include a few more people who are actually headed where you're headed, while you stay decent to the people you're slowly walking away from. You were never actually stuck with the people you started with. You just never gave yourself permission to go looking for the people who were headed the same way you were. That permission was always available. Most people just never take it, because staying quiet in a group that mostly fits feels safer than being honest about the parts that don't. It isn't safer though, it just feels that way right up until you actually try the other option.